Hi, I'm Ben Reinberg. We had a lot of terrific guests and conversations this year on I Own It. I want to thank you for listening and sharing your thoughts and feedback with me. As we approach the end of the year, I want to reshare portions of some of my favorite conversations on the podcast this year. This is a chance for you to catch up on great conversations you may have missed. And if it happens to be an episode you've heard before, you can re-listen or fast forward to the next conversation. Thank you, and I wish you happy holidays.
Welcome to the I Own It podcast with Ben Reinberg.
Let's talk about your fitness journey. I know mine, and people now I've shared with my fitness journey. You were a 98-pound weakling with a speech impediment, and you then were working out of your garage as a personal trainer. And now you are who you are as Tony Horton, this world-renowned fitness trainer. How did this all come about? Let's unpack your story in front of everyone, because some of our audience is younger and they don't know Tony Horton. I think folks might know you. And I think it's a privilege for these folks to really hear what a true inspirational story is.
Well, yeah, you got part of that right. I mean, I was a skinny kid with a speech impediment, which is not a great way to start in life. So I became a target quite often. You know, my father was in the military, then he got moved around with different jobs. So he moved 6 times before 5th grade. So, you know, little guy, non-athletic guy with a weird speech issue, new kid in the neighborhood. Let's stuff him in a locker. Let's take his lunch money. Let's beat him up. It was rough early on, but everybody has their issues at some point in their life. Maybe it's when they're a little kid, or maybe through high school or college, or maybe maybe things start to go south when you get a little bit older. And I get all that. And that was my start. I mean, my father was an amazing athlete. He could just, he was just one of those guys. But his father, my grandfather, just drove him into the ground. He made it a very unpleasant experience. And I think a lot of trainers and coaches and mentors still don't know the nuance on how to get people moving and taking care of themselves. They're too caught up in the win-loss columns, I think, when they're dealing with their athletes. That guy's not performing, we'll replace him with somebody else, as opposed to really nurturing and helping people get better. And I didn't like that.
That's a beautiful thing. So let me ask you something. So it's almost impossible to remember what life was like when you and I were younger, before the internet. Like now with YouTube channels and social media out there and the internet, at that time, how did you go about marketing them and building popularity? Like, how would you market, P90X? Was it just an infomercial?
Everything was infomercials.
It was
this is because the internet was starting to kick in there early on about, great body guaranteed, power 90, no internet, no phones, none of that. Like the people had phones with cords in their car, like people with, Bentleys and stuff. You know what I mean? I remember when I first started making some money, I had a car phone. I don't know if you remember that had a wire, like a regular phone. Yeah. It looked like this.
Do you remember they were like, I don't know what it was. It was like 50 cents a minute or something.
Yeah.
I had an Acura Integra and I had like a hump, and the phone was on the hump. And think about it, like you'd pick up the phone, you'd still be driving and you'd have to punch it in. It was like in Chicago, I think it was Cellular One. And I would call a friend. I'm like, look, I got 30 seconds. This thing's expensive. And he'd say, I'll be over in 10 minutes. Click.
That was, you're literally driving your car, holding the receiver attached to a cord while punching in phone numbers, looking down. I mean, it couldn't have been more dangerous and ridiculous. Now it's like, call Ben. Hey, Ben. Hands on the wheel. Nothing's, whatever. I love that part about how things have changed. But, those were the days, and they were really fun. After Beachbody, I've been very lucky. I work for Tonal now, and I'm their top guy on there, according to the numbers, which is kind of fun. I guess people remember me from the old days and like my Tonal workouts. And the vibe is always the same.
What's interesting is I believe for me, that's what engaged me was your humor. And you became authentic on the screen. And I feel a lot of people that have done your programs, because there's tens of thousands of workout videos out there. And even with Beachbody, there's hundreds that you could download or at the time buy the CDs. Mm-hmm. I'd have to feel that your personality, that's what separated you from a lot of these other trainers. It was the same thing with some of the other trainers on Beachbody, like Shaun T, and they had a real personality. And I think people gravitate to that. It's interesting. I loved the recipes. We still make at home the white bean chicken soup. That is one of the best
So
recipes.
good, dude.
It's so good. It's so good.
So good.
So when you're creating new workouts, Tony, and new videos, are you targeting a certain kind of person in your head that you're training? How does that work for you when you're creating new content and videos for the public? What's the plan? Are you saying, okay, it's the overweight person? Is it the person that's 50 years older, male, and he's looking for this? How does that work for you?
Just about everything works for just about everybody. It all depends on what your approach is. What is the weight you're using? How many reps are you doing? How much your range of motion? What's your athleticism or lack thereof? You know what I mean? So my gift was early on, partially because I didn't get this gift from anybody else, is cueing stuff. All right. Hey, everybody, Tony Horton here. We're going to do push-ups. Now, if you look to my left, you got Jimmy over here. He's going through the roof. He's going super deep. His hands are tight. His legs are straight. His eyes are forward. He's going to breathe and smile throughout this entire thing. If you want to go for it and you're athletic and it's not, a new day for you, then keep an eye on him.
You had such a big jump to your success based on your story. Because all of a sudden it's like you were saying, you weren't making a lot of money. All of a sudden you have this tremendous success quickly. You're being well known out there. You're training rock stars. It keeps growing and growing. I wanted to know, I am in commercial real estate. I own commercial real estate around the country with Alliance Consolidated, my company. And I was wondering, did you ever consider, or do you have any bricks and mortar for gyms? You ever have the concept where you're like, you know what? This P90, P90X thing is kind of rolling. Maybe I could open up some gyms and take this all over the place. Never a thought. Like you said, okay, we don't want to be like McDonald's and get in the real estate business. You just shook your head like,
no way. Managers, assistant managers, maintenance, cleaning, mortgages, insurance. You know what I mean? Like Jack LaLanne did it, and it was the bane of his existence, man. You know what I mean? Like if that's your world and you grew up in that world and you want to have your name on the wall outside so people can come in and pee on the floor in your bathroom, you go for it, man. I'm not interested in that at all. You know what I mean? Everything here is very compact. I can control everything. Our Power Nation Power of 4 generates, we have about 8 employees that all work remotely. You know what I mean? I haven't met 7 of my 8 employees. Never met them. Because they don't live in California. They live all over the place, right? But They do what they need to do, and they're really good. I mean, I haven't even met them on Zoom. But
it's so true. I train with a trainer 5 days a week right now here in California, and he's got a lot of energy and personality. And I love, he doesn't know how to count, because when we're at 10 reps and you think you got 5 more, all of a sudden you got another 5, and he does that on purpose. But that's what you want. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You do that to a client where it's like, you think you got like 3 or 4 left, and it's like, maybe you're doing like hack squats, and you're like, holy shit, I'm 53 years old. Should I really be lifting this much? And then all of a sudden he's like, 5 more. But that's what you need.
Well, if he's a good trainer, he's reading the room.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Let's talk about your illness, because you went through a lot, and I mean, you're in incredible shape. I remember doing P90X. You were about 50 years old and just ripped.
P90X, I was 46. Yeah,
46. Okay, so it was close. And so all of a sudden you have Ramsay-Hunt syndrome. What was that like? You're in such great shape, and then all of a sudden something sets you back and it just cripples you. How did you deal with the darkness? How did you deal with your mindset going through this? Because you went through so many years. You're in shape. You're growing in popularity, you're wildly successful. What does that say? Full catastrophic living.
Correct.
So
full catastrophe living.
Full catastrophe. So let's explain. How did you deal with it?
Well, look, it's stress, man. If you've had chicken pox, they're in there. It's in there it sits at the base of your spine. And then when you're not dealing with things properly, or the world becomes overwhelming, and you get past 50, you're going to get shingle. Justin Bieber, whatever he is, he's 30 something, and he got it, which is strange. So, there's a lot of places you can get shingles. You can get it on your neck, you can get it behind your ear, you can get it in your forehead, you get it on your face, you can get it in your torso. You know what I mean? It's called herpes zoster, but it's just the chickenpox virus raising its ugly head because there's something happening in your life that's you're not dealing with very well. And so now I have balances. So I still have something called, the after effect is bilateral vestibular hypofunction, which is I can turn my head now. I can pull up to a stop sign and look around and go. but I can't stand on 1 foot very well anymore. But on 2 feet, I'm pretty normal, even if I'm not great. You go to the gym, you work out, you eat right, you know.
You ever consider stem cells?
No.
I had it done. I'll tell you, it's heaven. It's heaven. I don't wear glasses anymore. Feeling great. Solves a lot of things. Definitely open your eyes to it if we can talk about it. But let's talk about your skincare. You brought up what makes the TH Keuilian unique. I mean, I saw that you're selling a number of hair and skin products now. What makes that line so unique, Tony?
Well, it's the pH balance of the ingredients, so it doesn't react to your skin. You know what I mean? It's TH Care is a little side project that started a long time. We don't do any media for it. The only reason it's a word of mouth product. There's probably about 150 people on auto ship for like the last 10 years. They're just madly in love with it. You know, it's natural. It's not tested on animals. Not that you can eat it, but you almost can based on what it's soap, a lot of it. But there's the face lotion, the body lotion. There's the face wash. It's just a really simple, clean, pH balanced product. And the hair and body wash is nice because it's just one thing. The hair, the shampoo and the body wash are all one thing in a bottle.
In commercial real estate, which is how I make a living, every single moment in the day you have to make quick decisions.
Right.
And it's constant manning up. And so when I started reading your book, I realized it's such a brilliant book because it's so true. No one teaches you about business and how to make decisions quickly and how to lead, and everything is by trial and error and learning on the job. And so I appreciate the book because it really shows you what a true entrepreneur goes through in life and the ups and downs, and you got to fail forward. And so, you founded Fit Body Boot Camp in 2008 and scaled it to over 700 franchises. So is every location where same equipment, similar square footage, similar processes, it's just cookie cutter, it's here it is, you have a franchise, here's how you do it, go ahead and do it, we'll show you how to market. Do you own the real estate of each location, or is it just rented space? How does that work?
It's rented space.
Okay.
And so the franchisee will rent space. Some locations, the franchisees have bought the space. It might be either commercial or light industrial, but we don't own it. We have a franchise buy-in fee, and then we have royalties that we take in exchange for the support and service that we give them and the systems that we give them. But man, I got to tell you, it is so easy to, and imagine this, it doesn't matter where you are in the country, where you are in the world, we have construction companies that will make a footprint for you, like identical, from the flooring to the what we call the expression walls to the lighting. Everything is pre-designed, pre-packaged, and ready to deploy, and it takes any of the guesswork out of, gosh, when are my doors going to open? So as an entrepreneur, especially as a small business owner, you want predictability, and that's what we give them.
So when you start expanding the franchises and you got to a certain level, what were the biggest challenges you faced in keeping the brand standards? Because with so many different locations, it's hard to control. So you look at all these locations, how do you control the standards for your brand?
Yeah, that's a good question, and yet another learning lesson, right?
Right.
In fact, there was that, I think it was called Founder, the story of how McDonald's came to be, right?
That's right.
The Ray Kroc discovered the McDonald's brothers, and he realized, like, all right, I can duplicate the system and make it a franchise. And if you remember that movie, these McDonald's that were supposed to be selling burgers and fries, some were selling also burritos, some were selling fried chicken, and he would go and do what is now known as compliance checks. And like, why are you selling fried chicken? Well, we figured we're a restaurant. If we offer more things, we'll have a better opportunity of getting the money. But in reality, it confuses the public, and it makes you one of many instead of a master of one specific thing.
When you're coaching them, what are you finding some of the challenges people have that, in order that you have to kind of hone them in and say, okay, here's what you got to do, you're not doing it. Is there common challenges you see with a lot of these people?
Yeah, and even with top performers, like a couple of my clients, literally their companies do about $1 billion. One of them does north of $1 billion. One of them is about to hit $1 billion. Several 9-figure, 8-figure, even 7-figure entrepreneurs. And it doesn't matter the category. They're usually looking down and in, as in too hands-on, even like the Sansone brothers, who have one of the biggest construction and real estate development companies out of St. Louis, make $500 million a year in revenue. They're too involved in the day-to-day with their 500 employees. So instead of looking down and in, guys, let's go up and out, right? That's what a visionary does. We look up and out. And so there's that factor. They're too far into the trenches. Hey, no one can do the job as good as I can, so I'm going to do it myself. Great. To what cost are you going to do that, right? So we teach them to replicate themselves. That's thing number one.
So well said. So you and I are around the same age. I'm a little bit older than you, and we come from a similar generation where it's hard work and grinding and focus, and there wasn't really the internet when we were kids, and no cell phones. And you look at society now. I have 3 kids, and they're older, and you see what goes on. And I call it, we live in a soft society. We don't, you have to, the way you treat people, it's with kid gloves. And I see the discipline and the showing up, and just like you said, the daily routines and managing people and leading. And I look at this new generation, they can't sit here like we are and have a conversation. We've never met before, we're communicating, we're connecting. But you see these kids and everything is down, I have to text.
Yep.
And so when you see them out in public and you're saying, hey, go talk to this person, it's almost like they're frozen. I don't know how to do that because I wasn't taught that way. And it's a huge issue. Technology, to me, it's a beautiful thing for certain things in business and communication and instant communication when you need it. But for communication, the art of being with someone in person, looking them in the eye, shaking the hand. It's the problem I have with remote, not only learning, but also remote workplace.
Yeah.
And it's the biggest discomfort I have in my business in commercial real estate is that you can't shake someone's hand. You can't look them in the eye. All day long we're looking at these Zoom calls constantly. And the problem you have is that you can't connect. As humans, we were meant to connect with each other. So you challenge yourself so you can rise to that occasion.
Yeah.
I always find with partners, and I always, we bring in high net worth accredited investors and family offices into our funds and our syndications. I always felt that no one's going to outwork me. No one's waking up at the crack of dawn. No one's taking ownership and responsibility. And I think that's what a true entrepreneur does. And if you're not aligned value-wise and commitment level and offer value to each partner, I find it hard to have partnerships. So I always struggled because I wanted control. I wanted to make sure things were right. And it goes back to your point, eventually as you evolve and you mature, you have to delegate and have great leaders, which I've learned over time. But it's true, partnerships are very difficult because if your partner doesn't align with your values and isn't going to work hard and carry their weight, you're never going to have an equal partnership. And resentment happens when I interview people. People, we come from a generation, we compliment people. You're beautiful, or thank you, appreciate it. And it's interesting, you can use one term and people can spin it out of control saying, well, Bedros said this, and he said this. And freedom of speech has really been a lost art in this country the last handful of years. And it's sad because a lot of men have become soft because I feel that women have this upper hand of if you say something wrong, or see, women want to be treated a certain way and they want equal rights and they want to level the playing field in business. But what ends up happening is you use a word, whether it's to an employee or a friend or a colleague or an interview, and it just gets spun out of control. And it's hard for men because, there's a survey where they were saying, well, what do you think women really want? Well, they want us to be sensitive. They want us to be good listeners and that. And women said, no, I want someone to lead. I want someone that's going to take control and be a man and have masculine qualities. And the problem is there's this disconnect going on in our society where men don't know how to act anymore because it's constant criticism. It's like when you keep getting hammered and hammered, it's like you can't be your authentic self. How do you balance your emotions? You have a lot of people pulling at you. I do as well. And, you grew up with modest means and you've had to learn. And, when you're an entrepreneur, you learn not to trust people at times. And you have people battling you mentally. It's a struggle at times. How do you, I meditate a couple times a day. What do you do to balance your emotions?
For me, it's been years of learning how to develop emotional discipline. And I learned that when I do hard, difficult things, for example, once a year I've got this thing called the Masogi that I do where I'll work the full day on a Friday, and then as soon as the sun goes, I'll see what time the sun goes down, let's say 4:54, because it's usually December when it happens. Okay, I'll put on my walking shoes and I'm going to hike all of Chino Hills all night until the sun comes up. Like, I want to do something difficult. I started off doing it by myself, and it grew to 5 people and now 50 people when I do these little wacky challenges of mine. But when I do that, we have all gotten to a place of so much pain, either working out in the gym or putting in a lot of miles on the road, where you go into that other place. I believe there's another room in everyone's head. David Goggins is the master of that.
Oh, yeah.
And you go to that other place and you get to meet your higher self. See, we are typically human animals. We're emotional, we're selfish, we respond to our feelings. We let our feelings determine how the day is going to go. But the human being who has transcended into a state of consciousness, like, I see the world as a witness. Consciousness lives in me. My eyes are the window, and I witness the world.
You know what's amazing about wearing a suit is that when you wear a suit, and I used to wear a 3-piece suit all the time at my office at Alliance when we were in Chicago, is the rest of your staff and people around you start elevating their game. It's amazing how you wear a suit, you wear a tie, maybe you're rocking a vest, and you're wearing a beautiful suit today, and I appreciate it. It just elevates, it inspires me and elevates me. And it's just, if anyone doesn't know Anthony, he's got such a class look to him. And for all you business people and leaders out there, especially when you're younger, when you can rock a suit, you will see people will treat you differently too. There's something about it that has this elegance. And so it's such a great example of what you do. One of the things you do really well is pivot. And in business, pivoting is so important. At my company Alliance, we look at that as well, because your personal life bleeds into your business life and vice versa. And we're a people first initiative company, and you have to take care of your people and understand who they are as people on a personal level. And what you do is you look at these folks and you say, and you bring up about employee retention, which is important context, and loyalty, and all these things that people do as business owners and employers, is that the way you treat your people will prevent a lot of issues and challenges as you move forward in your business career. And you see it on his show, and it's such a perfect example of treating people with respect and with love will go a long way to help you increase your bottom line, a better culture at a hotel or within a company. And it's one of the things I admire about you is you go in and you see it and you say, you know what, this isn't right. Let's fix it. And by the way, guess what? When the people are right, the hotel starts improving. It's all a direct correlation. Let's talk about effective leadership is critical in the hospitality sector, as well as any business, especially in commercial real estate. I know as I travel throughout the world for commercial real estate, that experience to me is what I remember in hotels. I might go to Savannah, Georgia, and there's a certain hotel I like. I might go to Austin, Texas, and gravitate to a hotel. A lot of us businessmen and women, we love to be able to have that experience. We're going and having a busy work week, or you might be going to a wedding on a personal basis, or you might be going out with your significant other to a hotel. How you lead is everything, and setting that example. And one of the things you talk about your book, Show Up. And I am currently working on my first book. People have asked me to write a book, and I'm working on it. And, you get a lot of aha moments in your life where you learn things about yourself. Mm-hmm. When you wrote that book, what really came out for you that you felt was like a turning point, something that kind of resonated with you when you're writing it, and like, this is why I'm doing this book. This is what I want to get out to the public to give them value and knowledge that I went through. And I want to touch on that, Anthony, because for everyone listening out there, that little inner voice, that intuition, that gut that tells us it's just not a right situation. Maybe it's an environment, maybe it's a relationship, whatever it is, your intuition's that inner voice that's kind of guiding you to where you need to go. And so it's an incredible story because it touches in on instincts. And it's how, for me as a commercial real estate investor, I've always had to work on instincts of the right markets. And I want to touch into this. It kind of transitions into a topic I want to talk to you about, being in commercial real estate. Every week we're assessing locations, different properties, how to feed our new fund, the Alliance Medical Property Fund, with great assets to produce wealth for you and your family. When you're assessing locations for new hotel properties. So as the vice president of Tishman Hotels, you were responsible for overseeing assets worth over $1 billion at the time. Anthony, what were the key considerations and strategies you applied when managing such a substantial real estate portfolio? I know we at Alliance manage a substantial real estate portfolio around the United States. What are some of your key considerations and strategies?
Well, that portfolio was one hotel. That was the Westin Times Square. And they were opening up the Intercon across the street, but I wasn't there long enough to kind of asset manage that hotel as well. For me, going in not knowing how to be an asset manager, never having that position before because I was an operator, was depending on the person that worked with me, John Paulson, who's in my book. I couldn't have done that job without him. But basically, at the end of the day, when I started to learn my job, the owner and the operator have two different mindsets. The owner is this is a real estate, and this is really difficult for operators. This is really difficult for me. This is a investment. This is a financial investment. That's what this is. For us as operators, this is an emotional thing. This is a breathing, living thing. And not everything is black and white on financials. So being able to tie those two things in together to understand and stand up for the operation, and also tell the operation, well, this is the way it's got to be, and this is why it's got to be this way.
Right. It's the same thing in our industry, whether it's a medical property, office building, retail, industrial, whatever our niche that we own throughout the United States is, one, you have to have systems in place. You have to have great people that you could rely on, and you got to delegate to them. But also what's really important in what you said is the ability to bring people together, to create a good team of people that can hit the mission that you're on and focusing on what's our end outcome to achieve what we have. And it goes with anything in real estate, whether it's hotels, multifamily, commercial real estate assets. We do is there are a lot of people involved in these transactions, whether from investor side, investment capital, to, in our business, credit investors, to lenders, to asset and property managers. There's so many people involved in a real estate transaction, especially of these magnitude that you and I play in, is that you have to be able to have a mission, what the outcome is, and be able to bring people together, Anthony. And that's one thing that you excel at. The other thing is, let's talk about your consulting business. Okay. Our Argio Hospitality, because as revenue management is a pivotal aspect of hotel operations. And you founded this company, this hospitality company specializing in revenue management and consultation. Explain to me what principles you emphasize to optimize hotels' revenue. The reason why I ask this is because I always look at our tenants, and I always see, like, how do we increase the credit, the lower the default risk for our tenants in our properties, and I kind of correlate it to you with you managing the hotel's revenue potential. Let's talk about COVID a little bit, because your industry, the hotel industry, was really impacted by the pandemic, and the hotel and hospitality industry faced significant challenges, Anthony, as you know. How did you see the future of the hotel industry evolving, and what are the strategies that you recommend for hotels to adapt and thrive in a post-pandemic landscape we have going on?
Well, I was so fortunate because my partner in the podcast business, Glenn Hausman, we were like, hey, let's do a podcast live. And we did immediately, day one of the pandemic, literally. We went live. He had a LinkedIn Live, and then eventually I got LinkedIn Live. And we were doing a podcast, I think once a week. But then we did it live, and we did it every day for throughout the pandemic at noon. holy crap. We got every single person. Matter of fact, the people you saw, on CNN talking from the Cleveland Clinic, I can't remember the doctor's name. We had him on the show. We had the presidents of every brand on the show. And just everybody came. I mean, we were in sweatshirts and we were all like, oh my God, what's happening? Like the first day. We were all dying, literally dying. Like we didn't know, but being able to talk to everybody every day and keep that going. We go to a conference or I walk through a hotel and they say, hey, you kept me going. And this is from high level people. You kept us going, and one person actually admitted to me, a president of one of the company goes, we thought we knew what we were doing, but we didn't know what the hell we were doing, but nobody knew what the hell we were doing. So watching your show made us realize they're just as close as we are. We're just trying to, put bubblegum on this and figure it out and do the best we can do. So that was really enlightening.
This is Ben Reinberg. I want to thank you again for listening to the I Own It podcast. Happy holidays and a healthy and profitable new year.
Thank you for listening to the I Own It podcast with Ben Reinberg. To hear our past episodes and connect with Ben, visit benreinberg.com.